So you knew it was going to happen. It had to happen. I wasn't going to stay locked down forever. I am breaking quarantine. It feels like I actually waited too long. I followed too many rules. I did everything that they told us to do because there was a rationale, right or wrong, but the rationale was that we were going to flatten the curve to ensure that people that did get sick would have access to hospital beds and emergency equipment. That made sense. There was some logic to it. Now, it didn't turn out the way they predicted. Turns out that the models that were used were built on a house of cards, that you can't actually model complex human behavior and make assumptions about a virus that you know nothing about and assume a way that people would mitigate risk. It was always absurd. The numbers were always completely implausible, and yet those numbers were used to lock down the economy. What a colossal mistake it's been. But no more. I think people are ready to break out. I think people are starting to realize that they did all this. They sacrificed so much. They lost so much. And now they've shifted the goal line. We're no longer talking about flattening the curve. We're talking in Los Angeles, in New York, in Oregon, all over the country. Our new overlords are now telling us that we have to stay inside. Businesses have to stay closed until there is a vaccine, until there's a cure, until the point where people will no longer be at risk. Well, guess what? Vaccine or not, we never get to a no-risk situation. As you're driving across America from Washington, D.C., where all the smart people are, to central Iowa, where the people that actually do work and have jobs and have a responsibility, in this case, to keep America fed, these are two different worlds. And I wonder why it is that people in Washington, D.C. or Manhattan think that somehow they could possibly apply their life experience, their rules and regulations, their top-down central plan, their one-size-fits-all vision for the future to this part of the country. I wonder if they've ever been here. Have you ever sat on the side of a field and contemplated the way that life works here? This state is finally opening up, but the fundamental point is not about spending or policies or all that, but just that arrogance, that conceit that you would have, that you think you know what's best for this part of the country. You've never been here before. Okay, this is it. This is it. I finally made it. I'm at Toppling Goliath Brewery in Decorah, Iowa, and this is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but if you're a beer geek, you know exactly where this is. It's worth driving 1,000 miles. There's other reasons to drive to a place that is allowing a modicum of freedom, a modicum of commerce, and safe ways to provide beer and food to people that are desperate for some sense of community after being locked down for so long. But all that aside, there is one reason to be here if you are a beer geek, and that's the beer. This beer, look at that beauty. That is a double IPA called King Sue. And if you look at any crowdsourced beer geek ranked rating site, Beer Advocate, any of these others, you will discover that this is one of the most celebrated double IPA, hazy IPAs in the world. And it is a Citra bomb. It's pineapple and citrus, and it's very fruity. There's no bitterness in this beer, even though it's a double IPA with an insane amount of hops. That beer is perfect. If you could, you would give that beer more than 5 points, 5 stars, which is the ranking, but you can't, so you give it 5. On the other end of the spectrum is this boy. This is called Morning Delight, and it is an imperial stout. Look at that. It's like motor oil, and it is so nutritious, and it is so delicious. And it is an imperial stout with coffee and maple, and on the nose you get all the maple, a little bit of the coffee. There's plenty of maple, but it's not too sweet. It's offset by the other things going on in this beer. And it also is a perfect beer. And to me, it's a metaphor for not just beer. Beer is beer, right? Beer is beautiful, beer is freedom. But the metaphor of creating something so different, so beautiful. And the story of these styles of beers here at Toppling Goliath is pretty cool. Toppling Goliath was started in 2009 by a husband and wife team. They were just beer fanatics. They were home brewers, and they decided to start selling their beer to other people. Long before craft beer was a big thing here in Decorah, Iowa. And they did it because they were passionate about it. They did it because they loved it, and they wanted to share that passion with other people. It wasn't about selling a bunch of beer. If you wanted to sell a bunch of beer in Iowa in 2009, you would make an industrial lager, and you would make it cheap, and you would make it plentiful. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to make this, and they wanted to make this. And to me, that's everything that's beautiful about America, being able to take that risk. Challenge your customers, because sometimes the customer is always right, but sometimes you upgrade a customer's expectations, essentially giving them a product they didn't even know they needed. Virus is going to work itself out one way or another. We're going to find better ways to mitigate the damage. We're going to move forward one way or another, but how we put the economy back together, that's pretty complicated. I think we're going to have to do it by engaging in commerce, by figuring out safe ways to once again be part of a community, part of a support structure where we help each other out, we buy things from each other, we engage in commerce, we trade, we peacefully cooperate, all that cool stuff that markets do. That's got to be the future, but we're going to need politicians to back off. Even if they won't admit that they were wrong, could you at least back off? Could you at least step back just a little bit and let us try to figure this stuff out? We'll see. But the other part, the civil disobedience part, the I'm done with quarantine, I'm going back outside, I'm gonna go look for a small business to support, I'm gonna go buy a meal, I'm gonna go order a beer, I'm gonna go do something that just a couple months ago was a completely normal thing to do. Now it's an act of peaceful revolution, right? Isn't that crazy? But let's do it. Come on out. It's beautiful. It's better for you out here. You're going to be more healthy. You're going to be more sane. You're going to be more happy. You're going to be more productive. And you're finally going to be free of the fear and the bullying that has come from our political class.